Shalum. Shalom and welcome. Welcome to End Time Protocols, Checks and Balances, a series of messages that will prove to be a vital contributor towards the awakening of the set-apart children of Yasharal, the children of the Almighty Father Yahuah. If you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Symmanayah, and this is the 32nd installment. In this installment, I want to bring your attention to the need to address education, be mindful of its strains and transitions. So therefore, I will address education, strains, and transitions. My brothers and sisters, you hear me, if you have listened to me before, talk about there is much work to be done. Many of us have skills and talents that we're not using to their fullest capacities. Many of us may be unaware why we have been gifted with certain skills or talents or expertise. We will grow to understand the anointing of the Almighty Father, that the things He expects for us in these end times, He have equipped us with the resources and the abilities to do such. My brothers and sisters, soon and very soon, we will begin to witness the 144,000 Hebrews or Abarim in a great multitude, as mentioned in Revelation 7 chapter, begin to emerge like scales falling off, like barnacles dropping off, like particles dropping off and revealing a gem or revealing fine gold. My brothers and sisters, soon and very soon we will realize that there are details and processes for certain portions of Scripture to be fulfilled. There are details and processes that must occur. And if we are that last generation, much is expected of us, more than what we can imagine. Education. Yes, there are strains and there will be transitions. I want to bring your attention, my brothers and sisters. One thing that seemed to have sparked this message as I was praying and pondering is that many of us are sending our children, grandchildren, or those in our care to a school system that do not teach our way of life nor respect it. Many of the school systems are complete with content contrary to our positions of belief. If I was to say in slang, it's like a mixed bag of tricks, so to speak. One might say it's like a melting pot. We send our children each day into an education system that does not align itself with our position of belief. In many cases, this same education system is unfamiliar with our dietary laws and our way of life. This poses a strain, yes, a strain or a challenge to our children, as well as to those who are charged over children that are school age. Whether you're a parent, parents, grandparents, and or guardians, our children are challenged to follow our instructions given to them as they step into a system that does not respect our way of life. Yes, some are homeschooling, but at some point the child reaches of age and steps into life, facing adulthood. My brothers and sisters, at some point in time, our children must understand how to navigate through this world of life that we know with the set apartness that is required. Yes, things that we did not know, but we now know better, our children are facing it at an early age. Make no mistake, O set apart Yasharal, it is apparent that the conditions and challenges ahead are very tough for our children. They're tough on the children's parent or guardian or grandparents. This is time we must pray and we must begin to develop a forum to discuss and seek to discern how the Most High would have us to move forward. As I witnessed such challenges among my grandchildren, my heart went out to their parents and all of the set-apart children of Yasharal, imagining what they're going through, trying to educate their peers in the school system as to why they eat what they eat and why they dress the way they dress and why they talk the way they talk. As I began to recognize this, my brothers and sisters, I was compelled to pray earnestly at the challenges, at the strains that we face as our children go into the education system. And then as I began to pray, as Yahusha HaMashiach directed me to also be reminded that as adults, as we are awakening. There's a lot of noise. And so when it comes to education, as it relates to growing in set-apartness, we as adults face challenges as well. There are those who are unlearned and undiscerning, being taken advantage of by wicked mores and teachers that seek to develop a name for themselves, or those who are overly anxious and erroneously step into things prematurely. You see, sometimes we are called maybe to be a more or teacher, but maybe we fail to recognize that it requires going through a development process, an education process that the Most High have for us in order that we may train others. And it's more than about academics. It's more than about book knowledge. Education spans the gamut in many ways, shapes, and form. It is the transference of information from one to another so that he or she may be equipped to do what is expected. There are no doubts in my mind that we have entered into end times and that a great awakening is occurring. With these words said, let us be mindful of our children. Each day, my brothers and sisters, let us be mindful of the stress that the parents and their guardians face as well. Let us be mindful of the strains that education brings within the school system, and let us develop a prayerful mind. Yes, my brothers and sisters, a prayerful mind, and seek to discern what must be done and begin to move into a transition that will satisfy the needs of our children, of our set-apart nation. My brothers and sisters, believe it or not, as I stated, book knowledge in traditional schools are not enough. Book knowledge regarding the scriptures is not enough. It would be wise that we learn to pray and seek to discern the instructions. Let us be mindful of what is given to us in scripture that tells us to pray without ceasing. This means to be in constant communication with the living Almighty Father Yahuah. I believe in these last days we will witness an education system set apart, directed by the Most High, from pre-K to beyond, for our children and for adults. Education systems that contribute towards the development of a nation that will come together, set apart, guided by the living presence of the Spirit of Yahusha. There come times in one's life we must look and accept that there are certain paths that the Most High have laid out for us. And education plays a role in that. And again, I'm speaking of not only academics, but beyond academics. Education is an ongoing phenomenon that we must and will come to learn how to manage. With these words said, I realize that many of you say, well, that's not telling me anything new. Be mindful of this, O Yasharal. There are specific tasks that contributes towards the molding and shaping of the 144,000 in great multitude, those who are set apart, as well as the martyrs for Yahusha's name who are set apart. We must be educated on how to look death in the face. We must be educated on how to be living participants of what is prophesied regarding end times. This requires a degree of education, my brothers and sisters, a degree of knowledge. One of the biggest challenges we face preparing our children is teaching them how to respond, teaching them how to discern and use wisdom when dealing with their peers and or teachers and administrators. One of the things we must consider among ourselves is, how do we interact with one another? Do we practice what we preach? Have we demonstrated to our children how we interact among those who do not respect, honor, or even have a clue to our way of life? It's time for us to look in the mirror. Are we demonstrating to our children how to navigate through these educational strains? How to face the transitions that are required from the Almighty Father? Have we explained to them how we fall and stumble? Have we made it clear that though we discipline them as we try to educate them, that the Most High disciplines us as He worked to educate us? Educate us sometimes requires discipline. I mention often Hebrews 12th chapter and Revelation 3:19. For it is the process in which we are refined to be a better me, a better you, a better Yasharal. I'm compelled to believe as adults we tend to ignore the importance of set-apart education. We have misused the scriptures by ignoring the need to discern the life in them. All too often we think by just showing us the scriptures, showing me the scriptures, show me where it says that, without leaning on the Spirit of Yahusha to make clear, to make known when a scripture is applicable to the time at hand. Many have embraced the letter, but fail to realize that without the spirit of the author behind it, we will misinterpret scripture. It is important for us to lean on our living teacher who is with us every day, every hour, who is with us always, who is mindful of the life in the passage in John 14:26. I mention it often. It says, but the helper, the set apart spirit whom the Father shall send in my name. Whose name? His name. What is his name? Yahusha. He shall teach you all and remind you all that I've said to you. Notice, my brothers and sisters, it said teach you all and remind you all the things said. Now the literal, of course, is John quoting Yahusha talking to his taught ones. That is the literal. But I say to you who can receive this, that beyond that, O Yasharal, is the spiritual, an endless fountain beyond the written. Beyond the literal, there's an endless array of instructions to those who are exercised by it, the living instructions of the Spirit of Yahusha. My brothers and sisters, we are discovering challenges placed on us as we make every effort to educate our children regarding the dietary laws as they attend school. In addition, we face addressing our peers, people on our jobs, our communities. There are the challenges of educating individuals on our way of life, our attire, specific behaviors, and why we do not honor these holidays that are most commonly celebrated throughout the school systems in our communities. My prayers go out to all who directly recognize that it is a strain for in identifying such. Then we should be able to seek deliverance, for it is coming, my brothers and sisters. Let us not despise the chastening of the Almighty Father. While many of us have begun educating our children, as well as ourselves, as we are awakened, we still face the ongoing day-to-day challenges, reinforcing what is taught, reinforcing what we are learning. While challenged with continual instructions to our children regarding what they face in school, adults are dealing with this great awakening and trying to discover what and who is right regarding positions of belief. As adults, there are no doubts in my mind that the question of how to identify what and who is correct is a great challenge, or I could say a strain as well. Believe this, O set apart, awakening nation. There are and will be continuous transitions ahead as we begin to receive deliverance. Yes, deliverance from the strongholds that weigh us down regarding educational challenges, strains. Transitions come, O Yasharal. Deliverance come. My brothers and sisters, let me read the following and see if you can see if you can discern the life in them and how they connect to education. Proverbs 22:6 say, train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he turns not away from it. And many of us look at this and say, oh, we need to train our children. We train our children. We get that. We get that. But how many of us realize that we are children of the Most High, that we are his child, and that we must be trained as well, and that the Almighty Father Yahuah, through his set-apart spirit sent in Yahusha's name, trains us as his child in the way we should go. So let us not just single this out and think that it's just the literal, just talking about the little ones. Training is part of education. It is an ongoing thing. Consider Proverbs 9:9. Say, give instructions to a wise one, and he is wiser still. Teach a righteous one, and he increases in learning. It doesn't say where it stops when you get a certain age. Education is ongoing, my brothers and sisters. Proverbs 9:9 is what I just read. Proverbs 9:9. I'll read it again. Give instruction to a wise one, and he is wiser still. Teach a righteous one, and he increases in learning. Is this not what we expect and would want for our children? Should we not want this for ourselves? Should we not demonstrate that we know how to walk in this? Matthew 11:1 said, and it came to be when Yahusha ended instructing his 12 taught ones that he set out from there to teach and proclaim in their cities. Teaching is part of education. The Most High Father, in the name of Yahusha Mashiach, desires that we learn how to teach and that we learn how to receive teaching. And I read John 14:26 when it talks about the set-apart spirit of Yahusha teaching us and reminding us. Who is aware of the life in Romans 8:16 and 17? Romans 8:16 and 17. It reads, the Spirit himself bears witness with our spirit that we are children of the Almighty One. And if children, also heirs, truly heirs of the Almighty One, and co-heirs with Messiah, if indeed we suffer with him in order that we also be exalted together. Children, my brothers and sisters, children, and children must be educated. Children, as his children, we will face the strains that come with education. We will understand the importance of transitions that come with education. My brothers and sisters, let not this word be a word that you shun, for in the coming days ahead, it will be a requirement for us to recognize such. Make no mistake, Yasharal, end times will demand that we not only pray earnestly on how and what to do for our children in these schools filled with lies, but that we begin to seek to discern how to accomplish the task of transitioning and coming together and educating our children collectively as a body, as a set-apart nation, in the ways in which the Most High directs. I'm compelled to believe that ultimately I may find myself actively involved in the creation and development of an education system for our set-apart children, as well as a career and educational development center for our adults. I see the possibilities of creating a central focal point where Yasharal come together in unity. And I believe, I am compelled without a doubt, let me remove the word think, that such unity will come. And we will see in the wake or upon extreme humbling times, we will see upon receiving the discipline of the Most High, that a refined, set-apart nation that will be gathered from the four corners of the earth. We will know how to educate our children, one another, and provide the tools, the information, and resources necessary to continue the legacy of growing in set-apartness until such time of the physical return of Yahushua Mashiach. And you may ask yourself, what did all this have to do with end-time unity protocols? I submit to you, my brothers and sisters, during these end times, major education challenges are before us, whether we talk about it or not. But soon and very soon we will, as we find ourselves being made straight. I'm compelled to believe there's a need for not only a set-apart school for our children and a development center for our adults, but a need for a central communication portal. And I believe it will come to be at the words of the Almighty Father. Pray, study, watch, pray some more, my brothers and sisters. Seek to discern what the Spirit of Yahushua is saying. The 144,000 in great multitude mentioned in Revelation 7 will not just pop up in an instant. It will be as a result of the discipline from the Almighty Father, the preparation, the details, the many processes we will go through to bring us into unity. While we are facing challenges with how to respond or equip our children with wisdom, while we face challenges among one another as adults, pray and watch, my brothers and sisters. The promises of the Most High are real. Allow me to read the following. Hebrews 12:5-6 says, and you have forgotten the appeal which speaks to you as sons. My son, do not despise the discipline of Yahuwah, nor faint when you are reproved by him. For whom Yahuwah loves, he disciplines and flogs every son whom he receives. My brothers and sisters, and in that discipline, he works in us, through us, one towards another. Judgment begins at the house of the Most High, as stated in 1 Peter 4:17, and we will find that judgment is being executed through us, one towards another. Some of the fighting within, the fighting among one another, is a fighting to bring us into the subjection to the Almighty Father, my brothers and sisters. If judgment begins at the house of the Most High, and he works in us, through us, one towards another, then we may indeed discover those who are sincere about doing the will of the Almighty Father will be as iron sharpen iron, like-minded metals. As we clash and come together, the impurities flee, the impurity sparks fly off, and we find ourselves a more refined, a more sharpened, a more disciplined, set-apart child of the Most High. If you drop down to Hebrews 12:11, it's saying, indeed, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but grievous. But afterward, it yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. Proverbs 9:9-10 reads, give instruction to a wise one, and he is wiser still. Teach a righteous one, and he increases in learning. The fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the set-apart one is understanding. Proverbs 4:1-2 says, children, listen to the discipline of a father, and give attention to no understanding, for I gave you good instructions. Do not forsake my Torah. John 3:3 says, Yahusha answered and said to him, truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born of above, he is from above, he is unable to see the reign of the Almighty One. My brothers and sisters, some say born again. Either way, the word born is mentioned. Born identifies a beginning, a starting point, my brothers and sisters. A starting point. And in education, there comes starting points. And there are times when we might get off that path, and we need to remember where we went wrong and go back. And make that correction, yield to that reproof, yield and recognize the power of the blood of the Lamb, Yahusha, power of his atonement, and yield to his set-apart spirit that renews us, and grow to understand what it is to die daily and rise up renewed by the power and might of the Almighty Father. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 12-14. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 12-14 reads as this. And besides these, my son, be warned. The making of many books has no end, and much study is a wearying of the flesh. Let us hear the conclusion of the entire matter. Fear the Almighty One and guard his commands, for this applies to all mankind. For the Almighty One shall bring every work into right ruling, including all that is hidden, whether good or whether evil. Notice how it's saying this, in much study is a wearying of the flesh. You see, there are some who think we just study, get educated, or just get the knowledge. My brothers and sisters, let us not forget that the scriptures tell us to pray without ceasing. Yes, we are instructed to study, my brothers and sisters. But praying without ceasing, as mentioned in 1 Thessalonians 5:17, is something that we will discover to be a priority. Matthew 22:29 says, and Yahusha answered and said to them, you go astray, not knowing the scriptures, nor the power of the Almighty One. You see, people study the text, but they don't really know the scriptures, because they don't know the power of the Almighty One. An undiscerning individual will stumble at the text, for the text has been tampered with. Yes, the scriptures have been tampered with. We see pagan names in an attempt to hide Yahusha's name and Yahuwah's name. We see sometimes they use the word new moon when it means new month. my brothers and sisters, there are many other things that we can find that have been left out. There are books, in some cases, there have been books left out. But it is the Spirit of the Most High Yahuah who brings to mind the life and what we have. He unveils the things that have been hidden. He revealed to us what we need to learn, what we need to pass on. Keep in mind, it would be wise to grow to know what is desired of Abba Yahuah, the Almighty One. The time is now to recognize what must and will come to be in order to fulfill what is written, O Yasharal. My prayer is that we begin to see the need to prioritize as we press on forward into end times, into intense times. We need to learn how to prioritize and what it is we need to pass on to our children, what it is we need to pass on to one another as it relates to education, not only from a practical and natural perspective, but also from a spiritual perspective. Be encouraged, my brothers and sisters. There's much work ahead of us. The Almighty Father Yahuah was, is, and will always be successful in his plans for his set-apart children and more. He, the Almighty One, Yahuah, is the beginning and the end. He is the author and finisher of our belief. Our lives are in his hands. Make no mistake, my brothers and sisters. End times are here. Take a moment, reflect, know, pray, and seek to discern earnestly what specific talents the Almighty Father Yahuah has given you in or allowed you to acquire. Ask why. The time is now for us to begin to recognize, educate ourselves on one another, on what must and will be done. Let us recognize that education does not bring with its strains for us to just be caught in these shackles. There are transitions that will reflect the deliverance promised from the Almighty Father. Education is ongoing. The key to walking straight is to seek to discern how the Spirit of Yahusha brings or reveals the connectivity to all that is presented before us. That connectivity will prove to add what is necessary for many members to come together as one in unity, O Yasharal. Education. Let us begin to have discussion from pre-K to beyond, O Yasharal. Let us begin to recognize how the Most High will begin and have begun to organize and structure an awakening set-apart nation. Until next time, O Yasharal, I invite your communications, your questions, your comments. If and only if you believe you are being led to do so. I invite you to continue to witness the messages that I present, as I believe I am directed by the Almighty Father Yahuah in Yahusha's name. Yes, O Yasharal, end times are here, and I know of no other direction to turn. My prayer go out to you, to each and every one of you, that you're able to discern the living presence of the Most High Father in Yahusha's name. You see, my brothers and sisters, to ignore Yahushua Mashiach is to ignore that the Almighty Father manifests his word in the person of Yahushua Mashiach. To ignore Yahusha is to disregard the plan that the Most High laid out. So let us come to the Father in Yahusha's name. And with this said, I bid to you, O listener, to these words, I bid you much. Shalom, my brothers and sisters. Shalom.